Hello, you are watching Western Reserve News. I'm your host, Bruce Rogers, and we invite you to sit back and watch the highlights of meetings that we are doing this week. This is the week of October 5th, 2015, and on Monday, Western Reserve News was at the Lordstown Village Council meeting. On Tuesday, Western Reserve News was at the Poland Village Council meeting. At the Poland Village Council meeting, funding for a Poland historical marker is approved.
Okay, I wanted to bring this up now because planning is already beginning for the Celebrate Poland festivities for next year. And of course, during the Celebrate Poland thing, it's part of that's going to be dedicated to the village's anniversary. An integral part of that celebration, and that part of it is going to be the dedication of that marker. So the Historic Society is already working on getting that sign ordered. And I think we need to give them the courtesy of telling them what are we gonna do. I mean, it's going to be our sign, it's going to be Village Hall sign. One side of it's going to be dedicated to information about this property, and the other sign is going to be about the village in general. So we really need to tell them what we're going to be providing to them. The total cost of the marker is $2,730.
How much was that again?
$2,730. They made an attempt to get a grant for that, and they were unable to. At this point in time, we are the individuals that should be liable for the majority, if not all. I'm suggesting that we pay for all of it.
I agree with that. Is there anybody who doesn't feel that we should do that?
You all okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Other motions, ordinances, and resolutions?
Okay, I'll make a motion to commit $2,730 to fund a historical marker for Village Hall through the Poland Historical Society, and this would come from the 2016 budget.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second by Mrs. Cernick. Any discussion?
What line item would that come from?
Buildings and lands.
Buildings and lands?
Do you have money in there?
Well, it's not till next year.
This is the temporary.
Right, it's going to be
Okay.
temporary.
So it would be buildings and lands?
Either that or council,
Contractual. One or the other.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter. We can do that or do either.
We'll cut down the tree.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Friends of Poland Forest was at the meeting to express their opinion of cutting down trees.
Hi folks, appreciate you allowing us on the agenda. I'm Gordon Longyear, and I am president of a group called Friends of the Poland Forest. We've spoken before the group before, so I'm not going to try to go back and repeat a number of things, but I do want you to know that the purpose of our group, in actual fact, is to help to try to preserve and protect our forests. One of the things that we are solidly opposed to is the harvesting and the cutting down of all of the ash trees in the forest, whether they be dead or dying. And I think as a group we are pretty solidly opposed to that. We don't know where you are or whoever is going to make the decision on what is going to happen back there. But we would like to, sort of state our position. And of course, one of the major reasons is the forest, as much as possible, should be left in its natural state. So I think that's sort of the general feeling of our group, and we would hope that maybe you would think long and hard of some of the collateral damage that might be done if we were to go back in there and harvest all of those trees and particularly pull them out Being that there are a number of endangered species and threatened species of plants back in there, it would be very, very difficult to avoid damaging those kinds of things. I don't think we're as hard-headed as you may think we are, in that I think in some instances we are not totally opposed to taking down trees that are along the most popular trails that may pose as a slight safety hazard, falling on individuals who may be on those trails. We really feel that the chances of that, I think Dr. Lauren Schroeder indicated to this group once before, that the chances of those kinds of things happening are very, very slim, but it is possible. And so we could go along with the idea of taking down a few of the trees that are in close proximity to some of the more popular trails and utilized trails in the forest itself.
Solicitor D'Apolito expresses his view of the village's purpose in the village forest.
Part of the thing that's so difficult about this is that people come to us and say, this needs to be done in the forest, and that needs to be done in the forest, and there's something unsafe that has to be taken care of, and there's all these things that need to be done, but we don't have a budget for the forest. And years ago when I started, many years ago, we did have a budget for the forest. We were able to actually give money to a forest line item to take care of some of those things that needed attention. We no longer have that line item because of what's happened with budgets over the years. Okay. If we had some form of harvesting, which the amazing point is, it's in our ordinance. It's how this was set up in the first place. So for us not to follow some form of harvesting makes all of us in violation of our own law.
Well, and it makes the forest board, I don't want to say in violation of their duty, but the forest board was created years and years ago by ordinance of the council with the express purpose of creating a cycle of cutting trees down so that the forest could have funds to keep the forest up. When the Forest Foundation was created, and in their application for, I think it was a 501c3, the money that they were getting, the money that they applied for, was directly to harvest trees. It's right in their application to the federal government, and that's why they were approved as a nonprofit organization. So the very two bodies that are created, one by council and then one by the forest board, their only duty, their primary purpose was to cycle these trees, not only to get money for the forest, but also to create new trees. The forester from the state of Ohio talked about the fact that the trees cannot grow back there right now, a lot of them, because of the coverage of the other trees. And that by clearing some of them out and planting new trees, you have new growth. And I think that was one of the things that was anticipated and talked about by council and by the foundation years and years ago. So there's no one on council that I've talked to or heard anything that doesn't want to do anything that's not required by the ordinance and by the very principles that built or created the forest for people to enjoy. And I don't, the last time we had a meeting for the forest board, I gave a lengthy, no one wants to hear it again, I'm sure, but a lengthy history of how the foundation was created, how the forest board was created, and how all these things that now have come to fruition were anticipated years and years ago, 80, 90 years ago, and now they're very appropriate for what the council is, I guess, requiring or asking the board to do. In fact, if the board does not think that they can follow the ordinance, then there's one of two options that I see. One is that the ordinance is taken away and there's no more forest board, or two, that the people that are on it, if they believe they cannot follow what the dictate is, then they can't be on the board. And I don't see another way around it legally.
An update on Poland's Little Red Schoolhouse.
Just to give you a little heads up, when we were here the last time, we talked about the windows. We're replacing not replacing, but restoring 8 windows in Little Red Schoolhouse. And we've submitted a grant for a grant application, 36 pages of it. They answered it, and we have 3 phases. So far we passed the first phase, which is a technical phase, reviewing the application and all the information that's in it, and that's appropriate. The second stage is we'll have an answer in mid-November as to whether the information is presented to the outside agency. The Ohio Historical Society does not make the recommendation for the grant. It's the people who fund the grants who have a panel, and the Historical Society will present to them the information to go about in choosing who the recipients are of the grant. Now, they're hopeful that they'll have well over $150,000 for grants to be given. We have gone in for a budget of $10,600, of which they would grant us 60% if we get that. We're hopeful to get that. The third stage, then, is for the Ohio panel of people, and that's made up by historic preservationists, local historians, archivists, museum curators, academic historians, and archaeologists to make that recommendation as to where in Ohio do this grant, where is it spread to. That review is to end in early January. So at the earliest, we would probably, and then that goes back to the Ohio Historical Connection. And if we do get a grant, myself and maybe some of the committee will be going down for a presentation on March 1 on the Ohio State anniversary and celebration that they put on for the history anniversary.
Lordstown Police Chief Brent Milhone reads a commendation into the council minutes.
Second item I have, I just want to read this letter into the record. I had sent this to Mayor Hill back on September 23rd, and I'd just like to read it. It says, Dear Mayor Hill, on September 22nd, 2015, at 16:16 hours, while working the afternoon shift, Officer Mark Reese and Officer George Ebling responded to Ellsworth Bailey Road at the Ohio Turnpike Bridge in reference to a male subject hanging off the bridge. Once on scene, the male subject indicated that he was going to kill himself by jumping off the bridge. The subject went on to state that he was kicked out of his home and nobody cares for him. Officer Reese and Officer Ebling were able to talk the subject away from the bridge and have him transported to an area hospital for evaluation. I would like to publicly commend Officer Reese and Officer Ebling for a job well done. Not only did they save the life or injury of this individual, but also the life or injury of those traveling on the Ohio Turnpike.
And a clarification of the safety of Lordstown's water supply. Folks, it really is safe to drink.
Bruce Platt, 1952 Salt Springs Road, your utility superintendent. I'm here as the utility superintendent. At last meeting, I informed everybody about our notice of violation of the EPA for the disinfectant byproducts. Following up on that, we put the notice out. There's been a response from the public, of course, with questions, what have you. And one of the questions that seems to be going around is, what do I do? Do I boil my water? There's a boil alert. I want to inform everybody that there is no boil alert or boil warning. That you're not required to do anything. The EPA doesn't require a boil alert or anything. You just go on as you have been in the past. A couple of things that if you would be more comfortable consuming the water is you could use a filter pitcher that has a charcoal media in it, because charcoal will absorb all the disinfectant, shouldn't say all, but a 90% of the disinfectant byproducts that...
You created quite a firestorm.
Unfortunately, I'm the messenger, you know. I just happen to be the messenger. As part of the job, part of the territory. Most of the, you can blame most of this on blue-green algae in all surface water entities. I forget the exact count, but there's 100 and some drinking water systems in Ohio that are under a notice of violation from the EPA right at this time. So,
Councilman Shealy talks about transportation for the seniors.
Just thing about transportation for seniors and stuff in Trumbull County. And if you would like a copy, I'll make a copy. I'll put it in everybody's box or something. Okay. And another thing is I want to talk to council about is the transportation thing that we have. TCAP's offer to pick up our residents, our seniors, and bring them here for their meals. And the other services that they offer, they can take them throughout their different areas in Trumbull County. And it'll be like a $60 per week, paid monthly.
Howard, I don't sit on your committee, but I don't know if I feel like I want to get out of the bus business completely. I told the mayor months ago that when we first got a new zoning car, one of the things that I asked was that there was a little garage built somewhere so that this car is not sitting outside. At that time we were promised that the car would be sitting in a garage somewhere, and sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I said the same thing to the mayor probably 6 months ago. Let's see what happens when we get close to the year. The village is doing pretty good financially and stuff, and if there's some money, I would like to see a small garage, two-car garage for the zoning car, and then I would support some kind of a small bus again. I mean, that's just my feelings. I don't know how the rest of council feels, because the email that I read that sounds like it could possibly be a real nice program that ends up found and stuff, but it also said as long as money's there. We could lose it in the beginning of next year. That could be done with. So we get rid of an employee, we get rid of the bus, we stop a program that we've had for a while. Yes, it's had its ups and downs, and then the funding is cut back for that, and our residents are left out in the cold. So I would like to see if the finances are there and stuff. I would still like to see us investigate some kind of a new bus, but I will support it only if we put some kind of a structure up to keep it from rotting again. I can agree with Mr. Mansell. You know, we have a lot of seniors, and the numbers vary. It could be as low as 3, it could be as high as 7 or 8, but we do pick a lot of our seniors up and bring them up here to the Office of Elderly Affairs. If we had a bus, we could possibly even start taking them back and forth to Scope. Actually, we do have 3 competing lunch programs in the village. You have Trumbull Mobile Meals. You have the Office of Elderly Affairs, which does have outreach service where they have meals here and they do take out to residents. And then you do have Scope also. And one time we tried to get the Office of Elderly Affairs and Scope to merge, and for some reason that was like oil and water. You have some people who are very comfortable upstairs and they don't care to go to the other sites. But I do believe, you know, there's $100,000 left in council's emergency capital improvement fund, and I know that we could afford to get a bus, preferably with a wheelchair lift. We don't need one like we got now. The thing is, if we did get it on our own, the one we have now, we were required to have so many trips, so many miles a year, and there were a lot of restrictions. And that's the thing about whenever you get a bus or anything, when you get a grant, a lot of times there's a lot of the restrictions which you don't or can't meet. But I think, you know, to take care of the seniors, I do feel that I'd like to see us not get out of the bus business.